Hello everyone, we are Team 1. So today we are very excited to give you a simple presentation discussing the use of loop in Python. Let's go ahead and take a look. We'll go through 4 parts in this presentation, including for loop, while loop, the difference between them, and we will have some problem set to see what loop can do. To begin, I will talk briefly about iterations, a very important factor in looping. Iterations means executing the same block of the code over and over many times. A program structure that implements iteration is called a loop. In programming, there are 2 types of iteration, definite and indefinite. With definite iteration, the number of times the designated block will be executed is specified explicitly at the time the loop starts. With indefinite iteration, the number of times the loop is executed isn't specified explicitly in advance. Rather, this block is executed repeatedly as long as some condition is met. And then we will learn about for loop. This will be presented by Jiling.
Yes, so for loop is a definite iteration. So we first will look at the flowchart of the for loop. While for each item in a sequence such as a list, tuple, dictionary, and string, when it enters a for loop, it will be checked if it's the last item of the sequence. And if false, it will continue to be executed with the statements, which is also the body of the for loop. And if the true, it is the last item, it will right away exit the for loop. And for the exemplary syntax of the for loop would be shown is that would be for variable in interval indentation statements. Here we can see that for loop is used to iterate over a sequence such as list, tuple, dictionary, string, which is called iterable. And the variable here, it takes on the value of the next element in interval each time through the loop. And finally, the statements in the loop body are denoted by the indentation and executed once for each item in the iteration. And here we learn more from the example. As you can see here is that the numbers in the loop sequence and the val is the variables of the loop. And finally, the sum equal to sum plus val is the loop statements. Next is the break and continue statement, which is used to modify the behavior of the for loop. First is the break, which will modify the program to exit a loop early. For example, when an element enters a loop, it will also be checked if it's the last item. However, even if it is false, it will, when it meets with the break, it will immediately exit the loop. For example, we can see that as normal, it will go through all elements in the my list. However, when it meet with the condition with link, it will meet the break, and then it will right away exit the for loop without printing the after break statement and go to the loop is ended. And next, we will have the continue statement, which causes the program to stop running code in a loop and start back at the top of the for loop. Well, when they enter the loop, the elements will, when it met with the continue, it will right away jump back to the top of the loop to check the condition. Is it the last item? And go to the next elements of that sequence. Next, we have the example like here, the for I in range 6. In the output, as we can see, the number is 3 is not printed because it met with the continue, which make the program go right away to the top of the for loop with the next elements. Finally, we have the nested loop, which is a loop inside a loop, which is for variable in interval. And then we have indentation to differentiate the 2 loops. And next, we have the pyramid, which is the exemplary example for the nested for loop. Next, we have the while loop, which is presented by Bao.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about the while loop. While loop is an indefinite iteration. It is used to iterate over a block of code based on a condition. It means that we don't need to clarify how many iterations the computer will do. In order to create a while loop, we must put a condition in the while loop. In each iteration, this condition will return true or false. If the condition is true, the block inside the while loop will be executed. But the problem is that the iteration will not stop as long as the condition is true. Therefore, in order not to create an indefinite loop, we should change the value of at least one variable so that the condition will become false. Another way to stop the loop is that we can set another condition inside the loop and use the break statement to exit the loop. Like the for loop, we can also nest a while loop inside a while loop, and the function is similar to the nested for loop. We can also put an else statement after the while loop. The else block will be executed when the condition becomes false. However, if we use a break or return statement to terminate the loop, the else block won't be executed, as you can see from this flowchart. For example, here Python prints 5 and 4 in the two first iterations, but in the third one, it encounters a break statement and it will stop the loop and also skip the else block immediately. It means that when the break statement is executed, Python will skip the else block. In addition, as you all know, if we put a while else loop inside a function and return before the loop condition becomes false, the rest of the block will not be executed, including the else block. That's all for indefinite iteration, and now let's talk about the differences between these two types of iteration.
Well, as you can see from the previous slide, there are indeed differences between these two types of iteration. The first difference you can see is initialization syntax. In the for loops, you need the iterator variables and the iteration array. While in the while loop, you only need a condition for the while loop to run. The second difference is in the number of iterations. The for loop can only be used for a set and finite time of iteration. On the other hand, the while loop can go to infinity, to the unknown, and beyond. But why do you use the for loops when the while loop is too versatile? The difference is in the speed. The for loop is faster as it only goes through the array, while the while loop needs to check the condition after the loop, which means it goes slower. And the last difference is in the user experience. The for loop needs perfect control of the iterations, as the number of iterations and the iterator can be changed, while the while loop you only need to take the conditions into account, which means you can change the condition with basic knowledge of Boolean data type. Well, and that is it for all the differences between the for loop and the while loop. Now, let's get to the problem set.
Hi, I'm Khoi, and I'll bring you guys the first problem set, liquid checkers. The airport has problem with guests bringing water bottle on the airplane. So please write a program to prevent these people from passing the custom. And here's our solution. Assume that there's a baggage scanner machine that can detect objects in tourist luggage via X-ray and machine learning. Then the machine will store these things in a list and follow. Now, we'll check whether any tourists bring along water or not by the following code. As you can see, the nested for loop will check each tourist luggage, and if there is water bottle, it will send the notice you should not pass, else please go ahead. Okay, so we have had a look at how for loop works. Now we move to the next problem set where while loop is used. The second problem is about programming a small game in which the player will guess the particular random number from 1 to 100 with 7 chances. In addition, after each guessing, the player will be able to know if the guessed number was bigger or smaller than a random number. And here's our code. First, we will import rank function from the random library to choose an unknown random number. Then we'll come to the while loop. Firstly, in case the player chooses the right number with 7 chances, they will definitely win and the while loop will break. Secondly, if the player cannot guess the right number after 7 chances, they will lose the game and the while loop will break also. Finally, we'll check whether the input number is bigger or smaller than a random number. Now we have a demo for you to have a look at this game. Please go ahead. Oh, what a shame. So that's a brief demo. Thank you. Now, Kap will help you on with the last problem set. Please, Kap.
Thank you, Khoi. Now I will show you how you can utilize loop and while loop to create a simple game. And the game's name is red light, green light. The way you play the game is you press enter to run when the light is green, enter stop to stop when the red light is red. You die when you run during the red light, and when you reach the finish line. The faster you run, the better. Now I will show you the program of the game. So firstly, we need the game to run an infinite amount of time. That's why I have a while true loop here. However, we still need a way to exit the game. That's why I use a condition statement combined with a break statement to end the game when the player wishes so. After that, I use a for loop to perform command after each step the player takes, because I know beforehand how many steps they need to take. Finally, I added a random elements to the game to simulate difficulty and a leaderboard to make the game more fun and competitive. As you can see from the program above, while both of them are loops, they serve their own purpose efficiently. This is just a small example, but if you look carefully, you can find loops everywhere in every type of video games. This shows that loops are an essential building block in making even the most complicated of program. Now, I will demonstrate how the game worked. As you can see, I reached the finish line and the game ends and it shows the leaderboards. I will show you another example. Like here, I run when the red light is open and I die. That is how the game works. That's conclude our presentations. Our teams include Đào Chí Tuấn, Tô Xuân Khắc, Hoàng Huy Minh Khôi, Lê Diệu Linh, Phan Thị Hiền Chi, and Trần Quốc Bảo. Thank you for watching.